afternoon to all the guests present here and all the viewers watching us live on our social media platforms. The topic for this session is the future of EVs, hubs, fleets, and power charging. In the year 2022, we saw massive push for electric mobility. Later in the year, we saw some unfortunate incidents of EV fires. And then now we are seeing a push for EV infrastructure. So I'll go across to my panelists all here and ask their opening comments about how do they see the future of electric mobility in India. Mr. Khan, if you can take this question first.
Thank you very much for having me here on the panel. So far as electric mobility is concerned, absolutely the future is bright. And let me tell you, the EV infrastructure, as well as the electric vehicles launched by the various vehicles, is increasing. You know, in the last 1 year is a 5-fold increase so far as the EV infrastructure is concerned. Vehicles are so every month around 5,000 to 8,000 vehicles are being rolled out by different electric vehicle manufacturers. So absolutely, there is no doubt that the growth is coming in a big way. So far as electric vehicle infrastructure is concerned in all sectors, you know, right from the passenger vehicles, right from the electric buses, right from, you know, the two-wheelers, three-wheelers, everywhere, you know, there is a fantastic growth is going on.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sinha, if you can add to this.
I would pass this question for now, but one very quick remark that financing need to have some different type of understanding and growth. It would further speed up the adoption.
Yes,
already said in terms of you know, the huge growth, but for me, we'll just pick a couple of pointers. One, we can see infrastructure being developed in terms of manufacturing. Second, government policies are driven towards increasing demand. And the third is there's an ecosystem that is developing. So if these three things happen, the outcome is bound to be. Today you'll have huge growths when it comes to, because the base is small. But that's going to go on for a long time. So very exciting times.
Yes, Mr. Deshmukh.
Yeah, I think, thanks for having me here. The opportunity is huge for the electric segment to grow because base is small and that also brings a lot of opportunity for the manufacturers to improve their infrastructure in terms of safety. And that is which will happen with, even though there will be incidents, it's not like that there were no incidents when the first ICE was developed. So with any new technology, there will be some failures. The technology will evolve, the systems and processes will come into the picture, the skill set will improve. The beauty is, if that happens in India fast, we can be the leader and showing the path to the world that how it can be done in a most effective and competitive way.
Good afternoon, everyone. So as we belong to luxury car industry and we see manufacturers are coming up with many model variants and of course the main challenge of range. So we see huge demand and a big future of EVs, especially in luxury car going ahead. Already there are good range in the vehicles and already people are loving it. They are demanding not as the regular conventional traditional cars, but yes, the demand is there. But in pre-owned it will take some time. In new car there is a huge demand and of course there's a good future as government is also pushing and we can see the regular supply from the manufacturer side also.
Mr. Lewis, who is joining us virtually, if you can also add to this, how do you see the future of EVs in India?
Apologies to the esteemed panelists, my fellow panelists in this, that I could not join in person for some personal reasons. Coming to your question, 2018 when we started, the question that we were answering is, what is an EV? The conversation was, what is an EV? Slowly, it has now moved to a point where we are saying, which vehicle should I buy? Should I consider an EV or should I consider an ICE? I'm very sure that give it another 3 or 4 years and the conversation is going to be, what is an ICE engine? Right? So I think that transition is gradually and nicely happening. And over the years, the conversation has moved from challenges to opportunities. Right? And we are seeing it right in front of us. So as a big EV enthusiast personally, and also being part of the industry, I believe it's the future which everyone has to start gearing up to. So that's my personal view of how EVs are taking off.
Mr. Varkey, charging infrastructure being one of the major concerns while adopting electric vehicles. So how do you see the plan in place in India right now?
There's always been this debate of demand and supply. Does the vehicle come first or does the charger come first? And I talk about supply. For us, it's clear that we will put up our network. So we've just started. We've committed to 10,000 charge points by 2030. And what is important is that the entire chain stays green. Because, otherwise we'll just move tailpipe emission to some other place. So it is important that when we move EVs, the entire system goes green. Now, are we the only ones? Obviously not. There are people like Tata Power far ahead and continuing to grow. And there are lots, Magenta Power. So there are lots of people who are going to be here. Charge ports operators, MSPs, and you're going to have a lot of competition, which is fantastic for an industry. So that is exactly the signals that tell you that we are seeing it grow. We need to be in it now, and we need to make sure it is safe and green when we develop the infrastructure. So that's really where I would be.
Mr. Kane, as Mr. Varkey said, Tata being one of the major contributors in building the charging infrastructures in India, how do we see the plan in place?
Yeah, Tata's, we aggressively added, the charging infrastructure in last few years, last 2 years rather. And still we have a long way to go, In China, every 4 vehicles there is a charger, and we have every 125 vehicles there is a charger, so a long way to go. Right now we have around 4,000 chargers in place. Our network is around 4,000 chargers. Very aggressive plan. By next year end we will have more than 10,000 chargers. And we are doing a very detailed analysis of the data what we are getting, because earlier the usage of the charger was less than 1%. Now it is touching 1.5 to 2%, at few places around 3 to 4%. So there is a good usage of the charger is also good. So we found that the slow chargers and fast charger, in earlier session there was a question that whether the fast chargers need to be increased. And surprisingly we have done an analysis that more than 80% of the usage of the fast chargers, rather the people are want to use the fast chargers on the highways especially. So we have a plan to go in a big way. We have more than 1,000 chargers of fast chargers right now, especially on the highways. And we have a plan to reach around 4,000 to 5,000 by next year, because we have seen that the customers are using fast chargers more, especially the passenger vehicle. So we are coming very aggressively, and a plan of 10,000 you will see by March 24.
You mentioned about the fast chargers. Fast chargers also have some negative effects on the batteries also. Batteries play a major role in terms of the safety. So how do you look at that?
In the sense there is a lot of discussion on the type of the chemistry of the battery and all. But right now the answer is the lithium-ion battery, and the lithium-ion battery, and then the NMC battery, LFP battery, the different types of the chemistries, and different types of how robust the batteries are and how robust the battery can take. Because it is a fast charger, it has to take more current. And the life cycle, right now 6,000 to 7,000 cycle to be precise. So many vehicle manufacturers are saying that their batteries are capable of working on the fast charging. We are not going to the vehicles or the two-wheelers or three-wheelers, but for the passenger vehicles, obviously to the best of my understanding, and the vehicle manufacturers are in place, their batteries are very well capable of using the fast charging. And obviously, the fast charging the customers are using when they are on the highways or when they are out for the touring or something. So most of the time, in their, the parking, they are having the slow charging. And they are using, so still it is a ratio of 80-20. So at 20% time, if somebody charging, the fast charging, I don't think there is a technical issue.
Mr. Garg, if you can add to this, like the charging time is a major concern. Like we go to a petrol station with an ICE vehicle, we get the vehicle filled with the petrol in just 5 minutes hardly. Whereas for an electric vehicle, it takes around 1 hour to 2 hours. So the time also plays a major role. So how do you see this?
Yes, definitely it is a challenge, especially for the non-fast charging. And we see it in our circle also, people are buying, and it is the only challenge what they are facing. And it's a major concern. You need to have, especially in mass cars, you need to have one more cars with the EV to have that requirement fulfilled. Otherwise, it is going to be very challenging. So it's first of all, I personally see it not as a affordable or a regular car or a substitute to your, you know, the need. You need to have either one more or you need to depend on the rentals or anything, because the long distance, again, that is a problem. And then charging, if you are going to, out of city, then again, there is a challenge. So yes, charging is definitely a problem. Fast charging is very good, but again, you need to have that accessibility to this, because having that regular gas station for petrol diesel car is quite 2-3 minute job, and it is still taking hours. So that is challenging, of course. But in luxury cars, I see there's already a good range, which I mentioned in the opening statement also, which is very supporting for the luxury cars. But for regular cars, it's need to be sold out.
Mr. Deshmukh, if you can add to Mr. Kane's answer of the fast chargers' effect on batteries, and how does technology play a role there in making the batteries more safer?
I think it's actually the answer is in the technology itself. It actually depends how the technology will change from the current available technology roadmaps to the roadmap which is good enough to adapt to the fast charging, at the same time to be reliable. So it's not that the technology is not available. Technology is available which can take the fast charging. The question is at what cost, and the scale at which it can come up to the market. So I think the answer lies in the scale of economy and how it will pan out actually.
So what OEMs are demanding and how ancillaries are coping with the demand? Mr. Deshmukh, if you can.
So from SKF side, if you see what is happening on the electric vehicles, the first change, or what we are able to see, being an European organization, we started seeing the big change in Europe first, because the big ones, they started moving with the EV push from the regulations which is coming from in Europe first. Then definitely the US, which took the companies coming up with electric vehicles. What we have seen is, in terms of the electric vehicle need from the bearing and the solutions perspective, is friction. If you don't know, the 20% of the energy which gets produced actually gets wasted to manage the friction. 20% of energy. Actually, if you are able to save even 1% of that by developing the products, you can calculate how much it will help. Current need, what we are seeing from the OEs is they are talking about, when we say total cost, they are talking about the complete carbon footprint. So if somebody is supplying certain products, how much is carbon getting generated out of it, and it is polluting the environment. In terms of that, they're expecting to see how you can reduce that to 10%, 20%, to a 50% level. Right from the sourcing the steel or the raw material from the mines till you produce the final product. How you are impacting the carbon footprint, and how you can minimize that impact is what most of the OEMs are calculating, because that is what the governments will start pushing in Europe and US.
Mr. Lewis, what's Magenta's charging infrastructure plan in India, and how do you see the effect of fast chargers on batteries?
Thanks for that question. Incidentally, and unknown to many, we were originally focusing on multiple aspects of charging, and what was important to understand each layer. So we decided to focus on fleet charging, and that's what we are focusing on, because for every four-wheeler or a passenger vehicle sold, electric passenger sold on the roads in India, there's close to 16 to 20 non-passenger segment vehicles, be it a three-wheeler and a four-wheeler format, being sold. So I think we decided to address the bigger pieces of the puzzle, and we focused on the fleet charging, and we are setting up hubs at this point in time. Even just take a city like Bangalore, we have close to 14 hubs, charging hubs. Each hub has at a minimum 20 slots to 75 slots, depending upon that. So we have mini hubs and a mega hubs, these kind of concepts. And the place where you're sitting right now, very close to that, about 3 kilometers from there, there's another hub which is around 70 charging points. Now, what we are seeing is fleet charging. Charging becomes exceptionally important in commercial or fleet charging. And there it is not only about charging time, it's the fact that the charging has to happen or someone loses his daily business, right? So it was a very different facet that we were trying to kind of manage. And it was not only about charging, it also meant parking, safety, and all of that aspect included. So we are focusing on that aspect, which is fleet charging for 3-wheelers and 4-wheelers and last mile logistics, which also caters to our internal fleet of close to around 600 vehicles. That's point number one. Now coming to fast charging, and I'll just data point. We initially thought that India will take, there will be a small variance internationally, close to around 70% of the charging happens on AC charging and close to 30% happened on DC charging. And this was my discussion, earlier discussions with Tata Power, and we realized that India is going to be very unique, where DC charging will be slightly higher. So we think that it will be on the higher side purely because the real estate availability and real estate cost will have to be, managed in by having quicker charging. So India will be very unique in that way, where DC charging will be slightly more prioritized, or it will be slightly different from what the international ratios are. However, said and done, that DC charging, I think right now in India is more about highway charging, but the fleet charging or the last mile mobility logistics is, I would say, close to 90% still on AC charging. And that is purely because of the availability of the products from the OEMs, which are focused on AC charging and less of DC charging. But we see that huge shift happening. I think in 2 quarters from now, there will be new vehicles, even in the last mile logistics space, which is on the DC charging focus. So this is a very interesting aspect where India will be a little bit more, the ratios will be skewed towards DC charging as compared to AC charging. And we are kind of geared up to that. So if you come to any of our hubs, you'll see both AC charging and DC charging at the same locations, and you can choose either of them for charging.
Mr. Sinha, for electric vehicle adoption, electric highways will play a major role. So what's the plan in India currently, and when will we see, or how near or far this future is?
I think all of us, we very well understand this fact that if you have to do business, the business has to look like business. It would not be a business if it is not profitable. And with this notion only in 2018, when we were trying to collect data of how India has to grow its electric mobility, we were trying to understand the prediction which will come up next few years or few months. That prediction was not very, you can say predictable and very fixed, on which it is easy for us to create a business or take financial decision or policy decision. We have been trying to do work or process of policy in old ways, and we're addressing a problem which is new. Electric mobility is not a very existing policy. So there was some reform required at the stage of 2018. And that reform was required to be done on a very fastest pace, maybe next 1 year. Understanding us, the ecosystem of mobility, came to us into 4 major problems. People are not buying electric vehicles because they're not sure that if I take my car out of city, what will happen to my car? If I shut down, who will come to help me? If I'm an ICE engine, somebody will come and they'll be able to help me. Second, the cost volume. The volume value which they have to pay in comparison to ICE engine was very high. And third, if somebody has to enter into business of infrastructure, they need to have a good ROI, utilization and break-even. That was not widely clear. Fourth, but not last, if I own a charging station or an infrastructure, what ROI are we creating out of it? So just on this note, this pilot started, and it started with a very popular notion of this government under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister to reform everything which is coming in your way of development. Power Ministry outrightly, very boldly given us a very clear clarification that if you are owning a charging station or if you're willing to own a charging station, there is no license required. And when you say, at the same time you are also saying that future petrol pump would not have licenses. But how do we reach to the implementation part of it if we do not do a pilot? we will not be able to prove it. It will only remain in PDF on the website of ministry, that ministry has a license on petrol pump, no license on the charging station. And to prove it, we had to do a very significant comparison of a petrol pump and a charging station. What is that stopping people from coming into queues and starting investing into charging station? There are three things which came out of the pilot. One, we know how petrol pumps are built. Architectural plant, their detailing, their pipe, their tank, every detail, minute, micro detail is available for petrol pump. About charging station, it was not available. And since it is not available, you have to struggle for 6 months, 8 months, you'll not be able to understand whether this will be certified, passed by the regulatory bodies, financier or insurance company or not. Second is, who finances petrol pump is again very clear. If you get a petrol pump license today, tomorrow bank is on your doorstep. Let's go start a infrastructure. But if you get to enter into the business of charging, you do not know which agency to actually approach. Third is, I know how long Delhi Metro has taken to reach to its break-even. I know how much time a petrol pumps or a gas station takes, but nobody is in this hall or nobody in this country was clear to communicate how much time a charging station will take to reach to its break-even. All three answers we given during the pilot. First, if you shut down on a highway, within 30 minutes, a backup should reach to you along with the technical specification and along with the technical RSA, if you are owning an EV. Second, if you do not know that what is the specification of charging station, both of the charging station of National Highway EV, which are there in Gurgaon, have a capacity of charging 1500 plus vehicle in 24 hours, are there for your specification. If more, then you can see the hub model also, which is recently inaugurated by Honorable Minister of Road Transport, Sri Gadkari ji. Second, the financing model of infrastructure, particularly into charging, was not at all clear. If you end up buying things which you have been buying, you will end up buying things which are 10-year-old. You will not be able to buy something which is for future. And fortunately, unfortunately, the utilization system on which financing depends was showing very, very bad results. 3 to 5% utilization, 40 to 45 years long break-even, into charges which is there installed in the ecosystem, it is not creating a very good business case. If it is not creating, then you have to find a new model. That new model is inspired from HAM, hybrid annuity model, very well defined, appreciated by Moody's, CRISIL, yes, World Bank and other organizations. Last but not least, we did not knew how much time it is going to reach to break even. That part was solved. Charging station on highway under annuity hybrid e-mobility takes around 36 to 40 months to reach to its break-even. So all these questions were solved. I'm glad that this notion of reform, perform and transform is bringing some insight from ground, and policy making is not like before, that you used to make a policy or spend 1,000 crore rupees, then you do impact analysis and content analysis or social audit. Right now, the notion of government and the policy making is very different. If you have to spend 1,000 crore rupees, spend 10 crore rupees on a commercial pilot, on a technical pilot, bring out those impossibilities, those intricacies of policy making or the ground realities, then roll out the bigger plan. Thank you. Hope it serves your question and also gives you a good.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Sinha, for so much insights. Mr. Kane, if I can come to you, as the number of electric vehicles increase, this will also increase the load on power grid. And Switzerland is also planning to ban electric vehicles in their country due to this power crisis. India being no different, where we've seen coal shortages and power crisis too. How do you see this?
Yeah, right now usage is hardly 1.5%. So no major impact so far as network is concerned. But so far as the India is concerned, the situation like Switzerland will not come, because in a very advanced stage, everybody is doing a very detailed network study to cope up with the growth of electric vehicles. Rather, Tata Power is also doing, because we have reached out to around 29 states. Everywhere our chargers are there, and it's obvious that it is a major challenge or a roadblock to get EV infrastructure. All electricity boards are not giving a very easily connection to the electric chargers, and they are also doing a very detailed study of network and as well as the loading of the infrastructure. So obviously, so we are also doing a study with IFCL, Bloomberg, that how the impact will come. So in the next 15 years horizon, how the impact of electric vehicles will come. And for that, a lot of work has already been started. We have spoken to many regulators, and they are coming with the way time of day is there, the tariff for electric vehicle with the time of day is also likely to come. So it is not a solution to ban the electric vehicles. In India, you know, the system is going hand in hand from right from the OEMs, right from the electricity boards, and right from the infrastructure who are doing that. How we can flatten the load curve of the whole day such that the EV owners will get the benefit of the lower tariff as well as the electricity will be used. Because we are not going to short, we are short during morning peak and evening peak. So during that time, if you know, the rates can be increased like the time of day, and the rest of the time during the night time we are the excess of electricity. During that time if the lower tariff is given, I have seen in US, you know, the tariff is in cents, and during the day, during the peak time, it is in dollars. So the same way all these functionality or you know the models will come in time to you know, time to come, and hopefully it will not be a problem. And you know, everybody is doing a very detailed study to cope up with you know the increased load of the electric vehicle and its impact on the network.
Mr. Varkey, do you agree with Mr. Kane, what he said?
The expert on power generation, but I think what is important is that I don't think, you know, taking one example and saying, you know, this is the future of EV or not. Actually, I think what Mr. Kane just mentioned was that we factor for EVs coming in, and our power production, all our grids, our CPOs, all then fit to actually make sure that it is possible to have that electricity available. It is possible to regulate it. And what is, you know, there are many methods to regulate it. And I would add one more. You would have storage systems that will help manage peak powers. So there will be a lot of solutions that we will learn from other countries, and some that we will innovate for the situations we find ourselves with. So I don't believe it's like, oh my God, we've got a situation here and therefore EVs are not going to happen. We're going to factor for it. It is only in its growth stage, which is the best part. We can get it first time right and continue to grow it. So I think, to me, the future is bright. But again, I come back, it is the ecosystem that will make it work. It's not just one company or another. We'll all have to do it together. Because if one goes off in one direction, we don't have power, we would have grids collapsing. That's not going to help. And this is where together, whether it's the private sector, whether it's the government, or whether it's the private and government together, we will have to build this together. So that's where I would be.
Thank you so much. Mr. Lewis, do you think EVs really suit India? What's your take on this?
Say if you can take care of the four aspects: heat, humidity, harmonics, and distance, EVs do suit India. Just let me elaborate on that. I mean, there are various aspects. I mean, you cannot copy-paste international solutions into India, be it the electric vehicle by itself or even the charging infrastructure. That's what we believe. You will have to localize it for basic things like temperature variations. The way we use public infrastructure is slightly different from how internationally it is consumed. However, EVs, I think the question should not be whether, how is it relevant to India? It's more like how India should make itself prepared for the EVs, because it's an onslaught, really speaking. It's a transition which is going to happen. There's just one point that I wanted to talk about: the last mile electrification. India, there has some challenges. I wouldn't say that everything is combo in terms of, one is the quality of power. Second is availability of power. Now, try talking to a farmer out there and telling him, hey, go electric. His biggest question will be, hey, listen, I have electricity only 3 or 4 hours in a day, and out of that, half the time, this trip off and other issues. So I think that's where some of the last mile we'll have to move into more fossil areas. And when the adoption of EVs at those locations happens is when we can truly say India is ready. Till such time, otherwise, we are only focusing on a very limited portion of India, but the biggest consumers are out there. So I believe the main power for electric vehicles is the electrification. what is going to happen is there's going to be a lot of power draw. And hence, India has not invested heavily in the last mile electrification or the infrastructure required for it. It's slightly dated. Take about smart metering concept by itself, which if we had completed by now, we would have been amazingly ready. But we are already 15 years behind schedule. So if these were some of the infrastructural challenges which are going to come, and I think now we should look at it as an opportunity for this transition to again renew those kind of upgradation programs, which will be mandatory for the adoption of EVs in India.
So to build the complete ecosystem, Mr. Deshmukh, what do you think? Is the government doing enough to push the electric vehicles to its full potential?
It's a difficult question to answer, but if you see from the government's intention is clear that they want to create from energy dependence to energy independence. So coming back to the last question, what you said, the problem of Europe is different. They're dependent on energy on somebody. And to remove that, they are actually, if you see, they are kicking off a lot of projects on wind and solar. Each country is trying to create independence on the energy front so that they are not dependent on anybody. And that will help them for the brighter future. Coming back to, for us in India, I think government is doing to the best possible from their side. Is there a scope? Yes, there is a lot of scope to push it in terms of adoption, in terms of making how they can support the industry to make it ready, in terms of the policy front, in terms of the infrastructure support, in terms of the technology support, in terms of creating awareness. So if you see, still in India, 80% of the vehicle population is two-wheelers. We should not forget that. And the remaining one, which is with the four-wheeler, yes, there will be a challenges on the infrastructure, but two-wheeler side, it's more or less people are getting ready. They are mentally prepared that they will buy an electric vehicle. They're just waiting for the right vehicle and the technology part. This is what whenever I go and see, they are, at least in the initial period, as my fellow colleague said, in terms of, there was a decision, there was 100% that they will go for an ICE. Then the shift happens is that whether it is ICE or EV, now they will definitely considering that, okay, which EV I have to buy. They're not thinking about ICE because we know that the resale value of the ICE will not be there. And for two-wheelers, the problem of the mileage is not there. Any two-wheeler within the range of 100 to 200 kilometers, most of the manufacturers are making the equipment ready, reliable to handle those mile requirements. Charging speed is also another problem which is also happening with the passenger vehicle or the four-wheeler side. And that technology will take time in terms of how the adoption happens. The best part would be the rate of increase of adoption in two-wheeler. That volumes will help the four-wheeler side to really make the industry matured, to see that their costs are getting absorbed, and then they can think about taking risk in terms of investment.
Mr. Garg, to build the EV ecosystem, the pre-owned car segment plays a major role. The pre-owned car segment is at boom right now in India due to many prevailing factors. So in terms of EVs, how do you see this ecosystem building and growing further?
See, pre-owned cars, there is huge demand and there is a shortage in the supply. Of course, being shortage in new cars because of obvious reasons of chip shortages and the major price hikes, waiting periods are long. So of course, there's a demand in pre-owned also. But as far as EV is concerned, there is no much demand in pre-owned luxury cars, I would say, because of the supply, again, because the prices of those cars are pretty high in comparison of the similar models available in petrol or diesel. So people are still preferring, it is more of a status symbol than of a usability in luxury cars, the EV, and same thing in pre-owned, that people are still, yes, but the time will come, of course, because EV is future. And one thing also, Mr. Sinha have explained this ground realities, very clear manner. I wanted to ask something from Mr. Sinha, that when we discuss ground reality, because I could relate with some, real problem when someone have approached us on our infrastructures to have those EV stations, those stations for the chargings, and you have mentioned that it takes 36 to 40 months, and also there is every 30 kilometer it is required, right? So, as per the guideline. So, I have one question that CNG pumps already they've not reached to pan India already, and 46,000 charging station, if I'm not wrong with the data, is required to cover up all these requirement of. So do you think that that ROI which you mentioned for 36 to 40 months, it's variable, or how it is, because already it is a long period to the ROI, and how it's going to solve the, otherwise people will not may not invest in the business or might take a step back.
If I'm not wrong, you are saying 36 months is a long period? Currently, the charges which you have, so mostly purchased by government. Sorry to say, I don't. It's not difficult. It is very difficult now to, cover that purchasing which has happened. I came into 2018. Most of the charges till last year were on the 3% to 5% utilization. If their utilization is 3% to 5%, you are going to end up into 45-year long break even. Your vehicle is not going to remain with you. And then we just shrink that to 36 months to 40 months. It is only possible when we will do one correction into our buying, that one, you do not buy on L1, L2. It does not suit emerging technology at all. Still, if we are doing it, you manage to tick all sectors and all checkboxes. You will buy something 10-year-old, which came into market, and it is going to be irrelevant immediately after 2 years. So whether it is going to bring that all in 2 years, it is very difficult. And as an Indian economy, if you look at our history, from 1947 to 1960, we were an agricultural economy. From 1960 to 1985, we managed to become a product economy because factories started coming. From 1985 to 2000, we started becoming a technology. And from 2000 to 2020-22, now we have become a gig economy. In this gig economy, this generation, what do they need? They need delivery. They do not need that this much is spent on health, this much is spent on the infrastructure. And when you go out, when you are having a vehicle, you go out, somebody hit you, you go to police, and police says, we have maximum vehicles in the world, second largest, but I cannot figure out whose car was this, because the registration process is plexed up. If you are having a mobile phone, it does not give you signal. What is the reason of paying that bill? We do not have signals in most of the places, and we are going to become the digital economy. So accountability, transparency, maybe not only into this, but to a small detail. If somebody bullies you tomorrow on social media or any internet or something, this next generation is a very impatient generation. They want accountability and transparency. I want to know who is the guy or the other sector. My parents used to be, okay, theek hai, chalo chalta hai. In this precision, you have to be very, very accountable for doing things, even a penny which is being spent currently. And if you will look at the way we have been picking up, 4 major changes is certification is the trouble, standards and the continuous certification of the programs or safety certificates which is required. By the time you tick all boxes without doing a commercial and technical pilot, you cannot be a god that, okay, this is the best specification I can assume. GBT hona chahiye, ya ye hona chahiye, ya battery ka ye standard hona chahiye. These are continuously improving standards. The only thing which decides is the delivery, productivity and performance. At the other side, safety and finance and insurance. If these two are not matching each other, business is not getting built up. And if business is not getting built up, what would happen? What are we doing? Right from the constitution in 1950, till date, we are copying standards. 80% of our constitution is copied from different countries. If you will read deeply, you will get it to know. That's a matter which happens to happen. But today, if 80% of your technical standards are copied from West, what are we doing? Is it looking West for validation? That they will give us the standards. in a summit before this, we were discussing the internet and the mobile. We are the 800 million user mobile phones. But something happens to you tomorrow, it is very difficult to find where is your mobile phone, who did what with what mobile phone. What is the regulator of telecom? TRAI. TRAI has came out with a regulation, new regulation, the pilot happening, is with your mobile number, your name will also be mentioned very soon. So if you are calling somebody, you have to have a clarity of registration. Vahan is going to give you a clarity of which vehicle is owned by which person. If something wrong goes, you are accountable for that accident. Third, if you are driving recklessly, your driving score, which very well and very soon will be accessible to government and also to your insurance company and vehicle company. That pilot is happening by World Economic Forum. But apart from National Highway EV, if we look at any emerging technology business, we will have to look at this, that the way we have been making policies, the way we have been doing things, it is not serving the purpose, it is not bringing anywhere. It is not letting us reach anywhere. It's an EV forum, I do not want to speak about other projects, but 30% utilization is very, very important for any charger from day one, if it is getting commenced. If someone traveling on a highway, within 30 minutes, they should get backup. If someone investing into an infrastructure, 36 to 40 month standard time for the contract should be there in the advance. And last but not least, the entire capex should reach to its break even into 36 to 40 months. If these four things are not meeting, please do not waste money. It is very difficult for us to justify today who has brought what, and it is going to reach break even into 45 years. We are at this stage of time where we need circular financing models to be global. If we will not be able to deliver our ecosystem to people, to the world, we will be an economy which, perplexed, fumbled.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Sinha. And to your question, Utkarsh, that again, pre-owned cars, the prices, one good news is that there is no much depreciation on the pre-owned cars. So it is like regular cars only. It means people are accepting it and buying it. So that's a good part. But yes, there is lot new cars supply has to be there to, to have more cars in pre-owned industry. And we are hoping for a good future ahead.
Now, coming back to our topic, to all the panelists, if I could ask their closing comments around the future of EVs, hubs, fleets, and power charging to build a complete ecosystem. What have we achieved and what is required immediately in 2023? Mr. Kane, if you can take this.
Obviously, a long way to go so far as 2023 is concerned. Steadily, EV infrastructure is also getting developed. So far as our is concerned, we are working on 200 highways, and every 50 kilometers we are trying to have a fast charger. But so far as the total EV industry is concerned, obviously the customers have a lot of expectations, and expectation includes, the payment avenues, expectation includes the availability of the chargers, expectation includes, the health of the EV chargers. So on all, so far as the Tata Power is concerned, and everybody has to work, and we are giving real-time update on the nearest charger availability on the web application, the easiest, the payment infrastructure, payment avenues available to the customer. At the same time, you have to meet, the number of vehicles coming from the various manufacturers and the charging infrastructure. So these are the few challenges. If the best of the services will be given, EV adoption will be very good in India. So I hope, there will be a very good future so far as the EV is concerned in time to come.
Mr. Sinha, to build the complete ecosystem, what have we achieved? Okay, please.
Okay, so a couple of things from mine. First, let's start with the customer and the customer's concerns and their journeys, because we tend to have single solutions for everything. That's not going to be. There's going to be at-home charging. There's going to be on-the-go charging. There's going to be destination charging, and there's going to be fleet and hub charging. So there's going to be a range of chargings. So that's going to be the first thing, because we've got to address the customer's concerns of discoverability, range anxiety, availability, reliability, and safety. First point. Second point, ecosystem. I can't say it enough, this value chain and this supply chain is developing. So it will take the private sector, the OEMs, the energy suppliers and the government to bring all of us together, whether it is in policy, whether it is in standards, and it's not to take away the ability for us to innovate. And the third one is innovation for me. It will, whether it's battery chemistry, whether it's the type of the chargers, whether it's vehicles, all these put together will drive this ecosystem and propel it forward, because in that will lie some of the independence of our future in EVs. So, thank you.
Mr. Deshmukh, so to build the complete ecosystem, what have we achieved and what are the next immediate steps required?
I think from the ecosystem perspective, there are the multiple initiatives from the government in terms of the supporting the manufacturers to set up the plants. Ease of doing business has been improved in terms of starting the all value chain and supply chains. The aspect where I still see is in terms of demand. If you ask me, the demand has improved drastically considering last year to this year. One big move would have been, which I could see, is in terms of adding the electric vehicle purchase in the income tax bracket. That has really pushed in terms of the volumes. When the volumes will improve, definitely manufacturers will be encouraged to put in the money, to put in the infrastructure to develop. Nobody is going to put infrastructure first and then they will wait for volumes. Actually, current economic situation is not that good. With recession fears coming up, and we say that the India is little safer, but still we are not isolated. We are in the circular world. So one or the other way it will come, and that fear is still there in the consumer's mind in terms of their purchases. They are deferring the purchases. So from the ecosystem perspective, I think it's demand first. How do we create a stronger demand pull? Then in terms of the technology and in terms of resolving the issues of the manufacturers and suppliers. And third is in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of charging, as Sir mentioned. It will happen in a phased manner. It will not happen quickly. In 2023, I think the best part would be how do we reach to 1 million vehicles. If you ask me, that is the first milestone I will look at it first. We are still below 500,000 on the volume perspective. On a 27 million vehicles, 500,000 is a very small number actually. But the potential is huge because per 1,000 vehicle consumption is still below 200. So there is potential is huge, but it's how we will see how the economy moves.
I completely second when Mr. Sanjay have said that customer apprehensions are solved, then there is a no look back. And of course, what we discussed in our previous session, Mr. Dipti and other panelists, that swappable batteries, double batteries, the technologies which are coming up and companies are working on it. And I see that the problems, the customer apprehensions will be solved and the EV future is definitely bright.
Mr. Lewis, what do you think? What have we achieved and what we need to take immediate steps in 2023?
The journey that he talked about the client journey. I'm just taking the other side of it. I'll call it the technology journey. It is important to know where we are in this journey. The technology journey is done, as in the technology development has been done. Then the awareness has kicked off. I mean, there's awareness. And after that, there's infrastructure and solutions that need to come in. That needs to be pushed in by finance and demand. And that's when we get mass adoption. So I think in this 5-stage process right now, we are in the middle of the awareness and the infrastructure and solution space. People are aware about EV, but they're waiting for the right kind of infrastructure and solutions to fall in place. And then the finance is going to flood in and make sure that every one of us can adopt EVs at scale. So I think that is where we have come. So we have actually surpassed 2 steps and we are already in the 3rd. That's the journey that we have already done. What lies ahead of us is stability of, if I were to call, government initiatives. For every initiative that has come in, I will just tell you just one quick one. I will not try to derail this conversation, but just 2 days ago, there's a news that the government has taken off some of the EV related SOPs, right? So what this requires a technology transition. This is not going to be a 1 year transition, 2 year transition. This is a 5 year, 10 year transition, which requires sustained efforts from the government and continuity from businesses like us, be it private or others, to start investing into this space. So that's one of the biggest hurdles, I would think, and then everything will fall in place because business always takes the path of least resistance. And at this point on, the resistance is more of regulatory and there, I would believe. That's the challenge we need to solve.
Thank you so much. So we are running a bit behind the time, so I'll close this panel.
But I had to give you a closing.
Okay, yeah.
I'll not disappoint you. Sorry, taking time from you. We'll keep it short, but if I look at my right, then in many of the places you will hear me giving emphasis on the infrastructure of power, Discom, the kind of connections these charges would be required to pay more attention to what is coming next. If you look at me, I'll say economy of India has reached on a very crucial point now, where we'll have to understand what is our net result. And net result is net zero. Be it electric mobility, be it hydrogen, the only thing which we want is it should not harm the environment and it should reduce our oil import bill. It is like you staying into a rented flat and planning to save some money to buy a home so that your rent bill would not be required that time. For us, a country which has to pay its highest bill as a fossil fuel import bill, we have to reduce and switch to solar, hydel, nuclear or wind. These are the four. And all four of them are very, very high capital intensive. If you do not have adequate money in your pocket, which frankly I would say no, we do not have, then from where this money has to come and see the transition of infrastructure from the power side, transition of mobility from the left hand side of me, and we wish to reach by 2030, 50 and 70 to a number which is very, very scary if you look at Excel sheet. This require a call for a different level of funding model, a more smooth procurement model, and a very detailed analysis of things which you are going to invest into. Today, if you invest into energy, I would not name any of the technology. Or technology A, tomorrow you switch to technology B or C, the entire assembly line of that particular machinery and the entire infrastructure goes wrong and goes for the toss. It gives a nightmare to the next technology which is coming next. So it is my request, it is my humble submission to all stakeholders to work together and look at the productivity which we will have to bring. This productivity will only be possible with more insights and more pilots on the ground to give you all true intricacies and implications which you may face after a lot of investment.